My first visit here 9 years ago, again, we were working on some calf issues and looking at the barn expansion. And really, there's been some improvements in how the calves have been managed, and they've expanded the farm, and I'm very impressed with some of the things that they've been able to accomplish in that time frame. Some of it is applying some of new ideas of moving to 3x milk production, segregation of the animals in terms of their parity, and recognizing the transition challenges that they face. And I think they're making the right decision in considering the possibility of building a new transition barn. Well, milking cows bring in the money. However, for a cow to become a milking cow, she has to go through the dry period and be properly fed and managed there. So when we talk to veterinarians, consultants in the dairy industry, they always identify the dry cow and transition cow or fresh cow as the single most important group to manage. Obviously, though, calves are your future genetics, and so we don't want to lose a lot of calves, but calves cost us quite a bit of money to maintain over the 2-year period before they calve for the first time. So really, it's a matter of looking at perspective. We should focus on transition cows for the current and try and promote better milk production through that process, but not lose sight of our calves because they're going to become our future herd. Well, one, you have to look at the entire farm. So I generally will start with the forage program because high quality forage is really the key to cow performance. But then I want to watch how that cow moves through the farm. How does she interact with her environment? How does she interact with the other cows? How does she interact with the diet? And so I look for things that we call cow comfort. When I see cows laying down in the stall, cows should be chewing their cud, ruminating about 10 hours a day. When cows are standing around, they're not performing well. So those are the kinds of things that I try and highlight and identify as critical, what I call critical benchmarks to improve upon. So I think there's lots of room for improvement. We know that they've had some challenges depending on season with calf health issues. And so that's something we want to focus on because, as I said, those calves are the future of this farm. And so we don't want them to have long-term disease processes. So I think there's opportunity if they do make some changes to the barn. We need to improve the ventilation in those calf units, give them a little more size, and then try and keep that bedding a lot drier. And that should really help go a long way with improving calf health and survivability. Space is entirely important. Cows, like people, have their personal space. We need to have a certain amount of square footage or square meters per animal, and our agricultural engineers in the United States have developed barn plans, and through the work with research, we've identified how much space that would be appropriate for animals to be able to show and to do their natural behaviors. That's what we want. We want the cows to be performing in their natural behaviors. And so in the transition period, we know that these cows need a little more space than they need prior or after. And so as I commented, it's important for us to look at the size of the stalls, the bedding, and then how much square meters per animal in loafing areas or in the boxes. Yeah, so the feeding program, they're using a company that is providing a service. I've worked with many feed companies in the Czech Republic and elsewhere in the world to educate their nutritionists to understand the newer technologies and newer concepts in nutrition. So it's good that they're using a resource like that. The total mixed ration, which is what they have here, is the preferred method of feeding cows. We haven't done our evaluation of the particle size, which is something that we typically do to get an idea of how well the TMR is being prepared and offered to the cow. We usually talk about four different rations on the farm. There's the rations that the nutritionists develop and formulate on their computers. Then that has to get translated into mixing the feed ingredients together, and there could be problems at the mixing level. Then that feed is provided to the cows, and then the cows eat that feed and assimilate a certain percentage of it. And so the ideal situation is to have all four rations be very similar in nutrient composition, but that's usually, especially in the transition cow period, there's usually a lot of variation there, and that's one of the things. Cows love consistency, so we want to try and make things as consistent and less variable as possible.